Another thing I wanted to maybe chat about is in menopause with or I'll say perimenopause, as even though estrogen levels can wildly fluctuate in our
Hmm.
40s as we're sort of moving towards menopause event at some point in our 50s, there is an overall decline, let's say, in estrogen over
Hmm.
our over the decade between 40 and 50.
Yeah.
And for with that declining estrogen, of course, there are a number of things that we want to be concerned about. But one of the things that I often get, because a lot of women are concerned about the body composition changes the undesirable body
Yeah.
composition changes that they're experiencing, is that they feel like they're hungry all the time. So metabolic hormones that are involved in satiety, leptin, and then our hunger hormones, ghrelin, which, if you just think of gremlin, that's how you know that like your little gremlin in your stomach is like gargling, asking you for a little bit of food. We know that this is related to estrogen
Hmm.
decline. So what are some of the things, and this is sort of been like nicknamed like the menopause munchies, right? It's like like you're just hungrier
Yeah.
generally. So of course,
Hmm.
the risk there is that you're taking in more calories. And then as you're taking in
Hmm.
more calories, you're putting on more weight, undesirable weight that you
Yeah.
don't want. So what are some of the strategies? I mean, we've talked about fiber, certainly we've talked about protein, but what are some of the
Mm.
strategies that we might think about as we know that this is metabolically, like physiologically happening,
Yeah.
decline in estrogen, and now we have ghrelin and leptin that's
Yeah.
not being inhibited anymore. What are some of the strategies that we might think about to offset this?
Yeah. So it stinks. I think that like as we age, and especially if we're going through perimenopause, menopause, that this happens where like we start to feel hungrier. Leptin, I think, decreases naturally as we age, regardless. And so it's like this double-edged sword of then estrogen decreasing and impacting that. And maybe we're starting to feel more hungry. I guess the good news is that like the same satiety foods that sort of help you sort of balance your hunger hormones like before perimenopause can help during that time. It's just a little more challenging, right? And weight loss or changing your body composition is always a challenge. And so this just makes it like a little extra challenging. But things like, yes, so fiber, protein, and healthy fat. I think there's still a lot of women that are afraid to eat fat, a lot of people that are afraid to eat fat, like we see it. Americans technically eat enough fat. I don't know that we're getting our fats from the best sources, right? Like if it's coming from fast food or ultra processed foods. But when we think about things like avocado and nuts and like avocado oil, olives, these are healthy fats. And so those also take a long time to digest. They're higher in calories, which is why there was the whole low fat craze. But if we can forget about that part, like they help fill you up because they are super satisfying. They take a long time to digest. So even just when I think about people who make salads, right? If you're just doing the greens and you're not adding a dressing or you're like spritzing on some vinegar or you're not, adding the olive oil to your salad or adding some avocado to your salad, one, you're not going to absorb those fat soluble vitamins, but two, it's not going to keep you feeling full, right? And we want to add protein as well and like perhaps some complex carbohydrates like some sweet potatoes. So I really think about like those three nutrients of protein, fiber, and healthy fats as being like really awesome for staying full. I think if you're also reaching for like munchy type foods, there are certain foods that are higher volume, lower calorie, like an air pop popcorn, which is available in bags or you can make it yourself. So like doesn't have quite the same crunch as like a potato chip, but you can have something like 4 cups for not that many calories. And so it keeps you, and it also has fiber in it because popcorn's technically a
Great
whole
source
grain.
of fiber. It's a great source
Yes.
of fiber. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. Like, that's my little snack. I love to do popcorn, a little bit
Mm,
of olive oil, and I have some rosemary that I grow in the back. So I'll take the rosemary and I'll just
love.
like put it in with some
Yeah.
salt and I'll put it in my popcorn and it is divine.
Yes. So satisfying. Yeah. And that's another thing
Yeah.
too, like adding flavor to foods, I think is really important. Like we sometimes forget that that can be really helpful. But when you're like satisfied, like as you eat, I think you're also less likely to overeat. And maybe also just rethinking like meal timing and like snacking strategy. Like maybe you could go through the afternoon without a snack, but maybe now we need to have like a healthy balanced snack in the afternoon to get to dinner. Because when you're super, super hungry, like when you do start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so famished, I'm so hungry, that's when you're less likely to make healthy choices, more likely to just
Right.
reach for like whatever's available or just overeat because like we not only are we like super hungry, but we haven't even given our bodies a chance to like digest and feel full because we're just like so famished. We're just like kind of scarfing down food. And I'm not immune to this, right? Like it happens. Like there are days I get really hangry and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's available? And I'm not necessarily making the healthiest choice. And I'm like, oh shoot, I should have packed that snack with me. Or like I should have had more at lunch because like now I'm making these like less desirable choices when I want to stay satisfied. But certainly it's frustrating. I think Healthline did some really interesting consumer research too with around women going through like perimenopause. And a lot of the frustration was just like not knowing what was coming and not being like educated about it. So just that like awareness of some of these things that might come up, like it's not all in your head that you're hungry or like there are changes happening in your body, I think helps to just acknowledge that. And like obviously you're doing this work on your podcast too. So just like acknowledging that and then sort of figuring out, okay, how can I help like fight against this, or what can I do to eat a little better?
And fats, like, so we're talking about protein, fats, fiber, but the fats are, to your point, they're going to help. They're going to help with the feeling full, but they're also really good for your skin, hair, and nails. So if you don't care at all about any of what we're talking about, just know you're going to have great skin.
I know. Yeah.
Great nails, great hair, right? So that's awesome.